So Dad passed away in 2007, and since 2007, the evolution of video games over the years would have blown Dad away.
This is a game. This is all made as a game. It's not a cinema. You're looking at Dreamcast game.
He would have just marveled at all of the amazing advancements we've made in the world of video games. And that's why this is a special list and video to put together.
Totally 3D, smooth as can be, no choppiness.
Here are the top 10 games my dad would have loved if he were still alive.
It's the real thing in three-dimensional sound and stereo color.
But first, a word about this video's sponsor, Rocket Money. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, we watched a lot of cable TV. These days, we're living in the age of streaming, and I've signed up for so many services that I don't even know what I'm being charged for. Thankfully, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower your monthly bill, and manage your money better. Rocket Money safely and securely identifies recurring charges and cancels unwanted subscriptions for you. You can even cancel from within the app with just a couple of taps. No need for any unwanted customer service calls. I'm also using Rocket Money to lower my bills. Simply by uploading a photo of your bill and tapping a few buttons, Rocket Money will negotiate your bills for you, from internet service to cable and phone bills. Rocket Money has helped save its customers up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. The truth is, guys, I've been using Rocket Money for years, well before they ever approached me for this sponsorship. I love the service, and I think you will too. Go to rocketmoney.com/retrolife or click the link in the description to get started for free. You can also unlock more features with premium. That's rocketmoney.com/retrolife to get started for free. Thank you, Rocket Money, for sponsoring today's video.
Coming in at number 10, we're starting things off with Alien Isolation on the PlayStation 4. Released by Sega in 2014, this game actually went under my radar when it came out. Now, the Atari Jaguar version of Alien vs. Predator was one of my dad's most favorite games of all time. I have some of the most amazing memories playing that game with Dad and just watching his eyes light up. And Dad was a huge fan of the Alien movie franchise. I mean, the original Alien by Ridley Scott. Oh my gosh, that film captivated him. It was one of his favorite movies. I remember him showing me that original film with so much glee, so much happiness. Alien Isolation recreated the Alien movie and its world so faithfully. These dark, lived-in hallways of a spaceship, and this is a survival horror game, definitely through and through, but not with zombies, not with any other kind of monsters. No, the alien on this ship is out to get you. Sci-fi survival horror. Dad would have been all over this game. Coming in at number 9, it's Forza Horizon 5. Now, when I first played this game on Xbox Series X a couple of years ago, I was really blown away by it. It was the first Forza Horizon game I ever played. And the first thing that I thought of as I was playing this game was, my gosh, I know that my dad would have loved this game. You see, Dad was a huge fan of Sega Rally and Daytona USA, those kind of racing games, arcade racers on the Sega Saturn and in the arcades. And really, I've got to put an exclamation mark on Sega Rally because he loved Sega Rally. And I really feel like, in many ways, Forza Horizon 5, with its location in Mexico, it really feels like a Sega Rally game. You you could get the Sega Rally car. And really, when you're driving in that thing, it feels like you're playing some sort of new Sega Rally game. But really, Microsoft Studios, they knock it out of the park every time with this series. And the open world mixed with the arcade style racing, just fast paced, edge of your seat. You feel every turn, you feel every moment of acceleration. And really, when your car bangs around and hits all the different objects of the environment, it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to go flying off of ramps. And when you land, you feel it. Man, the rumble feedback is good on the Xbox controller. And guys, I just got to say, this is a fantastic game. And I know that it would have been one that Dad loved. In fact, it probably would have been one of his favorites. Coming in at number 8, it's Streets of Rage 4. Man, guys, Dad loved Streets of Rage games. He was a huge fan of the beat-em-up genre in particular, but I have so many incredible memories playing specifically Streets of Rage with him. Streets of Rage 1, 2. I think Dad preferred Streets of Rage over Final Fight, even though Final Fight on Sega CD was one of his favorites. But I think if you look at the series as a whole, it was Streets of Rage, and man, Dad was a huge fan of cel-drawn animation, and I really think that with the sort of hand-drawn look of Streets of Rage 4, I really think that my dad would have adored this game. The city from the original games just comes alive in a way that we've never really seen before. And the soundtrack, too, is just fantastic, with Yuzo Koshiro, of course, coming back for a number of tracks. He famously did the original soundtrack, and Dad loved that. Beautiful beat 'em up and an incredible revival of the Streets of Rage series. All the throwbacks to the old games. In the game, you can find these hidden arcade machines that you can use a taser weapon on, and it sends you to like a bonus round that takes place in the original games with the old pixel art. It's so cool, and that's something that I know. I just know that this whole game would have been an awesome one to experience with Dad, because I know he would have loved it. And that's why it's on the list, guys. Coming in at number 7, we have Epic Mickey Rebrushed. Now, this is the remaster of Epic Mickey, which originally came out on the Nintendo Wii. Now, the reason it's here is because I know that my dad finally would have loved playing this game without the motion controls. Of course, the Nintendo Wii, it made you use motion controls, and that would have been a big no-no for Dad. He would have stayed far away from it, but it would have kept him from experiencing this amazing game. This game has so much love for the older cartoons that Disney put out. The entire storyline revolves around the original sort of Mickey Mouse prototype character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, that Walt Disney had created before Mickey. This was sort of the character that did not take off, and Mickey, of course, eventually took his place. And they based this entire storyline around Oswald and this sort of land of forgotten Disney cartoon characters where you meet up with Horace Horsecollar and Clarabelle Cow, and just there's so much respect paid to this black and white era of Disney, and I know Dad would have just adored it. He loved black and white Disney cartoons. I remember Dad actually owning the DVD steel box set. It was this really cool set of black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons. I mean, going way back to Castle of Illusion on Sega Genesis, you know, Dad, in our Sega Genesis Power Team video that we recorded for my cousins, he specifically says, Castle of Illusion, better than the cartoon playing in your local theater.
Tyler's favorite and everybody's Mickey Mouse, Castle of Illusion. It's even better than the cartoon playing in your local theater.
Another reason I know that Dad would have loved this game is because he loved Mickey Mania on the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Sega CD. Man, he loved that game. And that game also paid so much respect to the old Mickey Mouse cartoons. This one definitely belongs on the list. Coming in at number 6, it's Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And man, guys, this is a beautiful game. You know, sort of going in line with the same sentiment that I had with the other entries on this list that were sort of cartoony in nature, very Disney style. I mean, I felt like this game was like a living, breathing Pixar movie or, you know, DreamWorks film. It just looks so beautiful. And the way the cinematics blend seamlessly in with the gameplay as you're playing, that opening parade scene with, oh my gosh, just everything that's going on the screen. It was definitely a next gen moment for me to see that. And I do remember thinking as I played through this game that, man, Dad would have loved this game. He would have been all over it. All the different cinematics and just the storyline too. I think he would have loved this idea of interdimensional sort of gameplay where there's a counterpart for Ratchet on the other side through this rift in space.
You must seriously think I'm an idiot. Look, as real as I'm sure this Dr. Nefarious is, this has the Emperor written all over it.
Help! Wait! Under attack! Anyone!
Mort? What's going on?
This was definitely a statement for the PlayStation 5, I believe. And to this day, you know, the PlayStation 5 is kind of getting on in years. And I think this is one of the best games on the console. And I think Dad would have agreed. Coming in at number 5, we have the Beatles Rock Band. When this came out on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, this was a few years after Dad had passed away, and I just knew right then and there that this would have been one of his favorite games. So something you guys maybe don't realize or don't know, because I hardly ever talk about it, is the fact that my dad and I, aside from video games, we were huge music fans and rock and roll fans. Like, my dad was a rock enthusiast. He grew up during the British invasion of rock music with bands like the Kinks, the Rolling Stones, and of course the Beatles. The Beatles were his favorite band of all time. I grew up in a household that would constantly be blasting this music. The Beatles music it has this weird feeling in my life, almost like a very close friend or relative. Like, I hear that music and it's just a part of my upbringing. And the Beatles Rock Band, even though Dad was not a fan of Guitar Hero and just using a fake guitar to play the sort of rhythm-based gameplay, he liked watching me play it, but he was an actual guitarist and a pretty good one too. The story mode in this game is just amazing, where you kind of go through the timeline of the Beatles' rise to fame from the early days of the Beatles playing these British taverns and pubs in Liverpool to their highest heights of fame on the Ed Sullivan Show. I mean, this game is a Beatles fan's love letter, really. It's so much fun. It almost makes me sad. It kind of makes me sad to think of what he would have thought of this game. because I really think he would have loved it so much, and that's why I put it so high on this list. Coming in at number 4, it's Cuphead. I thought about maybe putting this a little higher, but the reason it's not higher on the list is because I think Dad would have had a really hard time playing this game. You see, I was the more run and gun, fast-paced action platforming gamer of the family, and Dad was a little bit more methodical with his games, and these kind of games really stressed him out. This game was way too fast-paced for him, but he would have loved everything this game stood for. The fact that this game looks like a living cartoon from the 1930s, more specifically, it looks like a Max Fleischer Betty Boop style cartoon, or like early Walt Disney Mickey Mouse. Everything is hand-drawn animated, and it looks like you're literally playing it off of an old movie screen in the old movie theaters where these cartoons were shown. Oh my gosh, it's such an incredible game to take sort of a Contra, Gunstar Heroes run and gun, hardcore style of action platforming, run and gun gameplay, and combine that with just the beauty of an old 1930s cartoon. It's so amazing, guys, and I love this game. It's one of my favorite games that has come out in recent years. And I know for sure that Dad would have loved it. He would have loved everything about it, from its visuals to its gameplay to its storyline, where these characters make a deal with the devil and they lose their soul. And you have to basically go through the devil's crazy amusement park filled with all of these wild boss battles. I mean, I feel like Cuphead has some of the most amazing boss fights I've ever had in a video game, and really it's all about the boss fights. Such an amazing game, a work of art. And Dad would have loved this. I really think he would have just gushed over this game. It's so beautiful, and it speaks so much to what he loved when he was growing up, and that's old cartoons like this. Coming in at number 3, it's Batman Arkham Asylum. Now, I first experienced this game on the Xbox 360, and this game only came out a few years after Dad passed away. And in the 2000s, I remember Dad really getting into the Batman games that were coming out on the original Xbox.
Oh, cool. Cool. That's awesome.
Those games were good, but there was something about them that just sort of fell into the average category. To me, those games didn't represent everything that Batman was supposed to be. Well, Arkham Asylum comes out, and it just floors me with its depiction of the Batman world. You are Batman, and you are basically trapped inside Arkham Asylum with all of Batman's rogues gallery. Joker is the one basically running the show.
You killed 3 of my crew when you busted out of here.
Only 3? I'll be sure to try harder next time. What say we aim for 100?
It feels like you're kind of playing through one of the Tim Burton Batman movies, or the animated series especially, because you have the voices of Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy reprising Batman and the Joker.
I'm in control of the asylum. You're not going anywhere I don't want you to. Understand?
If you think I'll let you run...
Always with the heroes! I'm getting bored of watching you. Why don't you just come find me?
This game feels like a Batman survival horror game. You know what I mean? Like, with some of Batman's most sinister foes locked inside this asylum with you, it is creepy because you don't know who you're going to encounter next. Some of Dad's favorite games were survival horror games like Silent Hill or Alone in the Dark. And so I really think that Batman Arkham Asylum would have just been a mixture of two of his most favorite things, like Batman and survival horror games, it would have been a huge winner for him. And coming in at number 2, we have Uncharted. I wonder if any of you guessed at this point that Uncharted would be on this list. Dad, he absolutely adored adventure games. Going way back to his roots with the Atari 2600, two of his most beloved and favorite games ever were Adventure, the original Adventure on the Atari 2600, and Pitfall. And really, guys, man, Uncharted is like the full realization of that sort of adventure, you know, Indiana Jones style treasure hunting hero. And Naughty Dog, you know, he loved the Crash Bandicoot games, and he really loved what Naughty Dog was doing with Jak and Daxter. I really feel like the evolution of Naughty Dog into Uncharted would have just set the world on fire for him. Like, this would have become one of his most favorite game series. He would have fallen in love with the character. He would have fallen in love with the in-game cinematics and the gameplay.
Not fun!
Dad was all about the evolution of video games, and he often talked about how video games were the fastest evolving medium. Being a film buff the way he was, and a filmmaker himself, he loved how video games were becoming more and more like movies. And Uncharted is just such a work of cinematic genius inside a video game.
I know I'm not a big-time treasure hunter like you, but I doubt you're gonna find El Dorado in there. How'd you get yourself in this mess?
Trying to rescue you, as a matter of fact.
It's almost like you don't have to have Uncharted movies or anything. These games are the movies. These games are what you should experience for Uncharted. No movie can really capture what these games accomplished. When I played this game, it came out like 3 weeks after Dad passed away. And I remember getting the game and really thinking to myself as I played it. It was kind of hard because I remember playing it and thinking how much Dad would have loved it. I mean, just loved it. And the PlayStation 3 was Dad's final console. I've never really talked about it on the channel before, but the PlayStation 3, there's a lot of bittersweet memories that surround that console for me. And getting Uncharted and getting to play it on the PlayStation 3 that was my dad's unit just weeks after he passed away, it was kind of an emotional experience for me. And I could do a whole nother video about the PlayStation 3, and really I need to. I had to put this game on this list because I just know he would have loved it so much. And coming in at number 1 is God of War 3 on the PlayStation 3. The top 2 games here on this list are PlayStation 3, and PlayStation 3 was the last console Dad had bought. He bought it for himself, and he loved the PlayStation 3 up until he passed away. And these are games, Uncharted and God of War 3 would have been just like mind-blowing for him. Dad loved God of War 1 on the PlayStation 2. And the reason why he loved these games so much was because he was a huge fan of movies like Jason and the Argonauts and 7 Voyages of Sinbad, you know, stuff like this. These Ray Harryhausen sort of swashbuckling Greek mythological adventure films that Dad grew up with. Those were some of his favorite movies. I remember watching Dad play through God of War's boss fights and just thinking to myself, wow, we have come so far with video games, and these boss fights are like no other. I mean, they were just incredible.
My eyes!
I just remember specifically Dad talking about God of War with so much high regard that I really believe, and I never got to ask him point blank, but I really believe that God of War was one of his favorite video games of all time. And I think God of War 3 would have been something that he would have just loved so much. And it's unfortunate that he never got to experience God of War 3, but I know he would have loved it.
Look at it! They're dying because of you! Everything is dying because of you! The sun is gone. The oceans swallow the land. Disease infects what remains. I am doing all I can to keep them alive. But you, your ruthless murdering of the gods has caused all of this. Ah!
This list, again, was really just my way of coming up with what I think would have been Dad's top 10 favorite games that came out after he passed away. I've had a lot of people ask about this. This specific question has come up in the comments quite a bit. It was sort of bittersweet going through this list. As I wrote the list down, it took me forever to sort of come to an agreement with myself on what should be on this top 10 list. You know, Dad is not here to help me, decide this, or for him to decide it himself. So what I've chosen here is not probably what he would have chosen in this specific order, but I think it leans heavily in favor based on how I knew my dad and what I knew about his love for video games. I really do think that this would be pretty close to what he would have chosen. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time.